Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Goombah Real Talk. Today we're going to talk about something that's been on a lot of people's minds, Final Fantasy 15. Now, everyone's really come to their own conclusions about the game, whether they like it or not, but I think there's more we kind of need to talk about, and I wanted to bring in kind of an Eastern perspective, so I got my longtime friend Hutch with me. Now, if you're unfamiliar with him, he's been helping me with my show for a really long time. He actually does Let's Plays and his own analysis show talking about voice actors in video games and anime and things like that. So I'll put links in the description, annotations, everything, because I really want you guys to go check out his stuff. It's really good. So, Hutch, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Actually, Goombah talked everything about me by now, so what else should I say?
Anyway, let's get to the topic at hand, Final Fantasy 15. So, we've already talked about this at pretty good length, and there are 4 key points that I wanted to talk about. The first one being the development time for this game was unnaturally long. Like, from what you told me, it started off as being Final Fantasy 13 Versus, or Versus 13, I can't remember which, on PS3, and then
Versus 13.
Gotcha. And then it turned into Final Fantasy 15 on PS4. So, from the perspective of like a Japanese gamer, what do you know about that situation, and how do you think that particular audience is handling that knowledge?
The information is pretty limited, I guess. The former director Tetsuya Nomura, who originally started the project of Versus 13, I think the long development time is pretty responsible for him. And I made a little research, and I didn't find any definite answer or word from him about why did it take so long. So all I have to do is just guess.
Sure.
I'm guessing he put more effort on Kingdom Hearts, after not the Versus 13, but Final Fantasy 13 and two other 13 games.
Right. Well, it's just kind of interesting because I wonder if in the development cycle the PS4 happened, so they're like, oh, we need to do something for the PS4 now. That's kind of the vibe I get. I played the demo all the way through, the Platinum demo, and it controls all right. The camera gets a little weird from time to time, especially when you're interacting with objects. But it definitely feels like a new sort of Final Fantasy experience, which we'll talk about later. But I don't personally think it's going to suffer from too many problems being in a long development cycle. It's just we've seen so many games, like Duke Nukem Forever, that was just in development for a decade, and it just turned out not that great. So, okay, so let's get to the next one, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people have thought about, is the character design. And I thought this was interesting, and I believe you agreed with me on it, that the characters look like Japanese pretty boys. It's like the antithesis of the geek or the nerd in Japan. And I wonder how that image would affect the audience's reaction to the game, because in retrospective, for us, that's like if we were playing a highly anticipated game, but we were playing as like Justin Bieber times 5. So what do you think?
At least people in otaku community wouldn't appreciate it, and I'm not really attracted by the character design.
Like you referred to them as ikemen or hosto. Can you kind of define that?
It's more like host style. Imagine a gyaru in Japanese, like those of Yamamba gyaru or something like that.
Right.
Imagine a male counterpart of the gyaru, and this is what they are, what the design is. I hope it will give you some sense.
I think it does. I think, because I'll be able to put up images and things like that, but
basically it's like those are bad boys in high school, or some grown-up of them, grown-up part of them.
Well, and it's so weird, because it's like, that style, I think, has been used ever since, in my opinion, 7. Because Cloud kind of looked a little ikemen, but Cloud's design was really, really unique, and it really stood out as being original, with like the shoulder pad, the really baggy pants. Even though he had a really slender face and that sort of Ikemen hairstyle, it was really extreme and blonde. And that's kind of the other thing that bugs me. Like, I think the game has a lot of promise, and I kind of like it, and I haven't liked a Final Fantasy main game in a long time. But all the characters kind of look the same. Like, they all wear black, they're all roughly the same height, they're all roughly built the same with maybe 2 or 3 exceptions. And the only thing that really separates them is their hair, and even then it feels kind of weird because like one of them has their hair that's going straight up, kind of looking like Waka, another has that kind of feathered blowed back hair. I don't know, I just worry about the character design. So,
I think it's probably because former director Tetsuya Nomura, he also designed this character in Final Fantasy 15, also designed Cloud, including Cloud, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and Kingdom Hearts.
Gotcha. I didn't know that.
In the late 1990s, his style with metallic accessories and black wear was something new, something very unique. Unfortunately, his sense of design hasn't been updated for more than a decade, and actually this metallic accessory and black pointed hair with mesh or maybe brown.
Right.
It happened in real life in Japan as a fashion movement in the early or to mid 2000s. Like I said, male counterpart of gyaru, so-called the gyaruo style. By now, this kind of thing has gotten pretty much outdated, so it's kind of old stuff.
That's
now.
Interesting. I didn't even think of that.
It's weird.
So it's like the character designs, like, because we as Americans aren't thinking about the character designs, because it's like, oh, it's Japan fashion, whatever. But so what you're telling me is that the character,
at least it's not the mainstream.
Sure.
Now.
Right, and that's so mind-boggling because this is a huge game that's coming out, and so many people are excited for it. It's been hyped, it's been advertised so much, and basically what you're telling me is that the design is actually outdated.
Yeah,
that's
it's one of the bad. It's one of the problems caused by the long development cycle.
Oh my goodness, that's.
I guess.
So this was my theory, and let me know if you agree or not. But it's like this could be the very first main game Final Fantasy to do better outside of Japan than in Japan. Like, is that a fair assessment?
I guess so.
It's just,
at least the character has. I'm guessing the character attracts more foreigner because it's something unique, something new to them.
Sure.
Unlike those Japanese people who would think them as kind of outdated and kind of dacai, not cool, not very cool.
That's it.
Oh, look, Tetsuya is doing the same job over and over for more than a decade. Now again, I had the metallic stuff, pointed hair. I've seen them 100 times.
That's so
like that.
That's so interesting because it's like everyone is praising. Now, we are not trying to discredit or say we hate Final Fantasy 15 or whatever. We're just pointing out things that like might cause problems or are weird kind of cultural shifts, but it's so crazy because everyone over here is praising Final Fantasy 15 as being something so brand new, and it seems like over in Japan it's been done, like it's old.
It's been done, yeah.
Yeah, it's so
I
cool.
remember hearing something like Gyaruo in like mid 2000, and it was. I totally forgot about it by now.
I mean,
I was like, I've heard that. I forgot about it.
It's so crazy too because it's like when I was over and teaching, like, gosh, how long has it been? It's been 5 years now. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've lived over.
Yeah.
But that probably explains why my Japanese is so bad. But no, it's like I remember a lot of my kids kind of wore their hair that way, but they never dressed that way. It felt like the style was going a little bit more towards American 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at Final Fantasy from 7 to 15, it's like I don't really see that hairstyle that much anymore. It's a little more mainstreamed than than what we're getting in Final Fantasy. But speaking of, and this is the last point I wanted to talk about, is that you told me that the director in an interview said that he was shifting something completely different, something that's never been done before, and
in terms of game development style,
right, and
style or team making team, or he said they took a totally different way of game developing compared to the other Final Sony Computer SCE games.
Right.
At least in the interview.
And it's interesting too, because the combat is real time, which I've never really seen before. Like, it's completely real time, and honestly, I kind of like it. I think it's kind of a breath of fresh air. I know a lot of traditional JRPG fans are going to be really disappointed in that. It feels like a lot of what Final Fantasy VII Remastered is going to be, which I'm kind of excited for, because if you like the old game, just play the old game. But real-time combat, an ever-changing world, and it's so interesting too, because in the demo you actually see time pass. You get to see weather changes. It felt in the demo it felt more like showing you what the game can do visually, a little more so than what it does mechanically. But what it does mechanically is very interesting. In fact, there was one point
mechanically.
Yeah. Well, Hutch,
mechanics.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. So
like the cars, or
I was actually gonna say
floating
that
device or something like that.
Okay, Hutch, I kid you not. This is what happened. I was playing the demo, and I'll show this in the video. I stepped on a pad. I turned into a truck. Like, I went from being human character, and I just turned into a truck for no real adequately explained reason. And then
I don't know what you're talking about, pal.
Well, it's like, so.
It sounds so weird.
It is weird, but here's the thing: is that the whole.
Is it a Transformer game?
No. But the reason why they did it is, and why they're using it as a tech demo, is that when you go throughout the game, you are in the main character's head. You are in their dream.
Head.
Yeah. You're in a dream sequence, kind of like what Cloud and Tifa were in Final Fantasy VII. So, like, all these weird, random things keep happening. It's like, in this dream, you are first met by Carbuncle. Carbuncle gives you a smartphone, and he talks to you through that smartphone. He even sends emoticons and emojis through that smartphone. You also meet Titan. You meet Leviathan. You meet a couple of just random enemies. You see a lot of locations, and this game is gorgeous. Like, it's super, super gorgeous, but it's a Square Enix game. Square Enix games are typically beautiful before they have really deep story or really engaging characters. So that's pretty normal for them. But it was so weird, because when you push these little buttons on the ground, it'll either change the weather, it'll change the time from like day to night. But this one turned me into a truck. And the reason why I think they did that is that you could play around with the car mechanics. I never thought I would hear that coming out of my mouth about a Final Fantasy game, but it's like, there are car mechanics in a Final Fantasy game. And for the clunky truck that I was, it felt like I was driving a really heavy, clunky truck. So I'm interested to see in what new direction the game goes in, but at the same time, especially from what you've said, it's interesting that it's still regressed from a Japanese perspective. So I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to add to all of that?
Let's see. I think the new director Tabata did a pretty good job in terms of gameplay, making it pretty modern, up to date, except for the kind of old style character design and world design, complicated stuff.
Well,
I'm kind of looking forward to see the Final Fantasy 15. The producer did something very special, something very uncommon, something very innovative. I'm kind of expecting him to make it Final Fantasy 16 or some later works even more innovative, not just to be up to date, but something totally new.
Sure.
Like making use of VR stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like, we recently had Final Fantasy Explorers release over here about a month ago, and it felt a lot. It was like a Final Fantasy Monster Hunter, but it kind of it followed the same rules as Monster Hunter, but it kind of transcended that genre a little bit by having all of these little Final Fantasy isms, like little things about Final Fantasy in there. And I liked it. I like that Square Enix is trying new things, because, God, if we had another 13, if we had 13-4, like Final Fantasy 13-4, I think I would choke someone. But I think they've heard loud and clear, based on the sales of, oh my goodness, what was that game? Bravely Default. Like, that, the message of, hey, we in the West loved that game, we want more games like that, plus the innovative behavior that's coming from Square Enix when it comes to games like Final Fantasy Explorers and Final Fantasy 15. It's just really interesting, and I hope they keep moving in that direction. But at the same time, I hope they move away from old fashions, old Japaneseisms and things like that, and just really do something new. So, anyway, that's all I've got. Is there any final thought that you wanted to say?
I guess that's all.
All right.
I've talked just too much.
Nah, you're all right. Well, Hutch, thank you for being on the show. Like I said,
You're
guys,
welcome.
go check out his stuff. Go check out his Let's Plays. Go check out his analysis of voice actors in video games. He does it all in 3D, too. Like, that blows my mind that he does everything with, like, 3D animation, because I could never do anything like that. So...
Kind of crappy, though.
Oh, whatever. It's good. So go check
Thank you.
that out. I'm going to put links and annotations. It's super fun. Hutch, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, this is Gaijin Goombah signing out.